Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Sales Club. I'm Wayne Dean, your host for the next few minutes. Hey, congratulations. Today is 1 week after what we call Quitters Day. So this is January the 16th. January 10th is what's called Quitters Day. And if you don't remember what that is, let me kind of bring it up. Most people make a New Year's resolution, set their goals at the beginning of the year, and then the number of people set their resolutions, yeah, like New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, they fail them by time it comes to the 10th of January. So I thought would be kind of interesting today to talk about quitters or people that failed and just leave you with a little inspirational thinking about some very successful people. So we're going to share my screen here. All right. All right. So, what do these famous people have in common? Abraham Lincoln, U.S. Grant. Do you know what these people have in common when you start to look at these different people? Michael Jordan, Winston Churchill, Thomas Edison, Ludwig von Beethoven, Colonel Sanders from KFC, Walt Disney, even Steven Spielberg. They were all failures. Now, they were successful people. If you look at my list again, you'd sit there and think, oh my God, all these people were famous. They were very successful. But quite frankly, they were all failures somewhere along in life. And I'll give you an example. Abraham Lincoln, most people don't know that, yes, he started his law business in Springfield, Illinois, but he actually lost more statewide elections than he ever won. Yet he went on to be president. Ulysses S. Grant, he failed in business. Matter of fact, he was in Elizabeth, Illinois, which is the northwest corner of Illinois, right between Iowa and Wisconsin, Joe Daviess County, as it's called. His family had a grocery store there, a general store, and he failed. He ran that into the ground and filed bankruptcy 3 times before he joined the army and became then a success. The only thing he was ever successful at was in the army before he became president. And he was our 18th president of the United States. Michael Jordan, some of you have heard this story before. He's cut from his ninth grade team. Sophomore year, he was cut from the varsity, didn't make varsity. A lot is made into that he failed, but quite frankly, yes, he was a junior varsity player. He wasn't that he was cut from basketball, he just didn't make the varsity team. But he missed over 76 game-winning shots. We talk about the one that he did in Cleveland where he beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, the last second shot, and then Phoenix he beat. And he had a lot of game-winning shots, but he actually had more shots that he lost at the buzzer than he actually won. Now he owns the Charlotte Bobcats, obviously. Thomas Edison, this is my joke on this one. He failed 999 times before inventing the light bulb that actually worked with the correct filament. And I get a kick out of that. Most people think, Edison was in some attic somewhere or whatever. He actually had a big plant in New Jersey where they did a lot of different inventions, and they had different departments back then. Also, how'd you like to be the guys who worked on the light bulbs? That there's like, gosh, we failed 900 some times. Can I go work on that phonograph thing that we heard about? But Edison always talked about the number of failures that he had, but quite frankly, he was an astute businessman. But he was a failure in many, many of the experiments that he had. Colonel Howard Sanders, KFC, most people don't realize that he failed as a steamboat pilot. Matter of fact, he ran the Julie Bell Swain on a sandbar in the Mississippi River. He was an insurance salesman and didn't make money there as an insurance salesman. He was a railroad fireman, and the fireman is the guys who actually take and pitch the logs and the coal into the steam engines to create the fire. And just a little anecdote, the firemen don't like being called firemen. They'd rather be called firefighters because, again, the fireman is the guy that used to work on the railroad to keep the fire in the engine. But he was a farmer, failed as a farmer. Drought just totally destroyed his crops one year. But he started KFC at age 65. And most people don't understand. He sold KFC to PepsiCo for several $1 million. Many people thought that he was crazy. He could have gotten more out of it. They could have sold more Kentucky Fried Chicken. But he actually kept the franchise rights to KFC in Canada and other Mexico. He made more money with KFC in Canada than he ever did in the United States. But look at how many times he failed before he was successful with the seven herbs and spices recipe. Walt Disney, many of you probably been to Disney World, to Disneyland, and you don't realize that, yeah, he created Disney World and Mickey Mouse, but he failed in his first business, which him and his brother started in Kansas City, called Laugh-O-Gram. And it was just like a telegram today kind of situation, or the idea was they would go door to door and deliver a joke for people. He failed at that. He also failed at his first drawing of Steamboat Willie, his first Mickey Mouse attempt, when he submitted it to the art schools, he was rejected. So this great thing that he's created for Mickey Mouse, he was rejected that he didn't have any talent. Steven Spielberg, obviously he directed Jaws, E.T., Jurassic Park, some of the highest grossing films of all time. But his first film he was a high school dropout, and his first film had a budget of $500, was shown in his local theater, and it only made a profit of $1. But that didn't discourage him, and he continued to keep going. So I want you to think about, Beethoven. Forget that Beethoven's music teacher told his parents that he would never, ever, ever amount to anything. So we can go through life and find a lot of people that are failures. You learn more from your failures than you do your successes. And I think you need to think about that as far as we're talking today about Quitter's Day. Quitter's Day is a day that a lot of people quit. I think we don't take into consideration, yeah, but how many people start up again? Maybe they quit at their diet or whatever their New Year's resolution was. But then again, maybe 2 weeks from now, the circumstances have changed, make it easier, whatever, and they start up again. But failure is a natural part of life. Again, we learn more from our failures than we do our successes. But if you think about the anatomy of failure, first your mind will deny what it can't accept. They'll sit there and say, I can't believe this has really happened to me. I can't believe that I failed. Then you go through that step of fear. But fear is a useful tool. Fear is a survival mechanism. It gets your juices running again, gets that adrenaline pumping. Then maybe you get angry. You get angry at the world or whoever didn't help you get to the goal or whoever prevented you from getting to the goal. So remember, we start with the disbelief, can't believe this happened. Fear, I'm afraid this happened. Anger, now I'm mad at somebody because this happened. Then despair, reality, you really got to get to this lowest point and you're uncomfortable about the situation that you're in. And finally, acceptance, that you accepted failures and you're ready to get back in touch with your feelings of reality and get back to work. But just remember, if you fail at your New Year's resolution or your goals that you've already established, you're going to have to go through these 5 levels of fear, just like Wayne Dyer wrote about the 5 levels of acceptance of death. So you got to think about, I failed, but let me get through all these things and then I'll start up again. Because the lesson of failure is this: you learn to understand yourself, you learn to be objective about what's going on in your life. Okay. Then you learn to adapt a new attitude toward decision making and maybe the inherent risk of trying something new that you set a goal for that maybe was a little bit hard to achieve or whatever. But you learn to adopt that new set of attitude and beliefs. Then you reorder your priorities and then you start thinking about, okay, these goals that I established that I failed, what are the most important ones that I don't want to fail again at? Because maybe you set a goal that was just unreachable, not because you didn't have the desire, but perhaps you didn't have the help certs. Or I had a friend of mine in college, his favorite line was, and Ellis, if you're watching this, I hope you don't mind me quoting you, I'm a victim of circumstances. Circumstances are real. Sometimes we can't control circumstances, but you can always control your own behavior. So sometimes the circumstances weren't set up at the beginning of the year to get you on target for these goals or these New Year's resolutions that you establish. But now you can reorder your priorities and think about really what is important to you and really what you need to add to the priorities that you maybe didn't even think about 3 weeks ago. And then you strengthen your gut system. You have a choice: either suck your thumb on it or get on with your life. And another friend of mine, I always said, he would point and say, when you point at somebody else, like, you suck, you suck. Remember, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. So sometimes you have to sit there and say, yes, I do suck. Yeah, I am terrible. Yes, I am a fraud. But that gets you rethinking again and start strengthening your gut system and understand risk. Many times you're starting a goal for this year and you have some risk. And the story that I used in one of my training is this, that understanding risk. If I'm driving home tonight and I drive by one of the many, small ponds or lakes, and I see somebody off the side in that water, cold, icy water, drowning, is it a risk for me to stop, park my car, get out, jump in and try and save that person? Yes, it's certainly a risk to me because I've got, I might not be able to swim. The cold water, overcomes me. And that's huge risk for me to go out and save somebody I don't know. But as I start to jump in the water, I realize this is my own son. This is my son, Tyler. Now, is there any risk? Now, so many people say yes, and so but to me, there is no risk. I either do or die. There is no risk. I have to go save my son. So when you understand risk, that risk is just reward versus the risk that you're going to have to take. But when say Dave Sandler, I got to give credit to Sandler in their book. If you think and you loosen your hold on what you're certain of, and you reach for something you're not sure of, but you believe it's better than what you have, okay, that's worth taking a risk. I mean, risk isn't going parallel. That isn't going from one job making 50, $60,000 in sales to another job making 50, 60,000. Risk is taking that moving across country to take a job because you believe that the risk is worth it because instead of going parallel, you're going to another area of the country that you want to live in. You're going to maybe a higher salary. You're going into a better situation. You're willing to take that risk to move across the country because you believe you're going to be in a better condition than just moving parallel. That's understanding risk. And again, there is a loss when risk is taken. It's an unavoidable. When you take a risk, you're always leaving something behind and you're growing because you're leaving something behind. And how do we guarantee a loss though? Is by not taking a risk, not taking and just staying in the status quo. So again, the role of fear when we start talking about, yes, I have a lot of fear coming up that I'm going to fail. You need to understand that fear is not something that you can't accept. Fear is healthy. It stops us from doing things that really would be unhealthy, but it does make us start thinking about risk versus reward. Don't be afraid to think about risk as far as, hey, I might not know what is in store for me in the future, but I think it's better than what I have now, and I'm willing to do the necessary behaviors to take such a risk. So uh, I just want you to think about that as this is those of you watching me now, and some of you watching this later, this is the second week in January 2025. You've set some goals for the year. You might have already given up on those goals, but just go back and think about the list of people that I just showed you earlier who failed already, but they didn't stop them from continuing, and finally hit it. So hopefully that's the motivation that you'll have to continue to work in the future toward achieving your goals. So again, every second Thursday of the month, ACA members will be able to join my podcast for free. It is a benefit of membership in the American Club Association. All other clients in the future can continue. I have paid clients to pay to be a member of my group. Anybody new coming into the group, if you want all the weekly sessions that I do, continuing consultations, $50 a month to be in the group. Reach out to me at Wayne at 3dpro.services. Again, that's Wayne, W-A-Y-N-E, at 3, the number 3, D, letter D, pro.services. That is my email. My website is 3dpro.services. You can always go in there and contact me that way and see if there's additional training that you want. I hope this session has been helpful to you. Again, this will be recorded and put up on our website. So also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, that's the youtube.com/@ Wayne, W-A-Y-N-E-D-E-H-N. And you can subscribe to some of our past trainings and future subsequent trainings. Have a good day and a great 2025.